Oh, hello and welcome back to Random Access. I'm still Bobby Chastain, but this time my guest is Allison Wong. Allison is a violin player, musician,
Yep.
and ER doctor.
Yep.
We won't talk about that today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, how did you pick up violin, and when did you decide that you were going to be a musician?
Yeah, so growing up, my dad actually had played piano, violin, and accordion, and he had wanted my sister and me to pick up something. My parents joke around that it was something to keep us busy after school so that we wouldn't hang out with the bad crowd. And it seemed
Wait, musicians are not a bad crowd?
No, you can be rebels. Yeah. We were rebels in our own way. But my sister and I chose violin. It was kind of the lightest instrument of the three that he played, more portable as well. Beginning stages are pretty awful, both for the learner and for the parents listening.
It sounds very squeaky, doesn't it?
Very squeaky. It's why they make you practice in your own room and close the door. And you have to have a lot of patience, a lot of persistence, both on the learner and the parents. But it took probably about 1 to 2 years before you can make a relatively good sounding sound. And then decide that you want to pursue it more.
And did you kind of know it when it happened? Do you remember when you were playing and you thought, okay, I'm not terrible anymore? I'm making music?
Yeah, I think so. I think once you learn a technique called vibrato, and you'll see it later, but it's basically when you kind of move your finger back and forth to kind of have the sound resonate a little bit more. And I think that really opens up your sound, and I think that that makes you feel a little bit more confident about your playing.
Sure. And so you stuck with it, and then by the time you went to college, you were good enough to play in the school symphony.
Yep. Yeah. So I went to Stanford, and they have a symphony orchestra. So I was concertmaster of the Stanford Symphony Orchestra. So from freshman year to senior year, we were fortunate enough to go on tour to Australia and New Zealand after our freshman year, and China after our senior year. And it was really cool because they incorporate exchanges with the symphony orchestras in those countries. And then you get to sit side by side by those musicians, and you basically learn that music is a universal language. And despite having a communication barrier, especially for the tour in China, everyone can sit side by side and make awesome music together.
That's great. And so this is, when there's a year where you tour, the symphony orchestra gets pretty big, right? There's a lot of members.
Yep. Somehow magically the interest in joining the orchestra grows. So I would say the violin section itself usually is about 20-ish maybe people or so. And then on a tour year, it can pretty much double in size to 40.
Okay, so when you were touring to Australia and China, just the violin section, 40 players?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. And it included everyone from freshman year to senior year, and then also recent grads, and in some cases some community members too.
So you have this giant orchestra around you. You know, I'm a music fan. I don't have very much musical talent, but is it exciting just to kind of be in the middle of of a symphony? I mean, what's
Yes.
that feel like?
Yes, it's awesome. It's grandiose. It's great to be able to walk onto a stage with, I don't know, like almost 100 other people. And be able to put on a performance and really speak to the audience. It's incredible.
And now, violins are known for being, almost works of art in themselves, and they get pretty expensive, don't they?
Yep, they can go into the multi-million-dollar range, especially if you pick up a very rare Strad. So this is my baby. I was lucky enough at Stanford to be able to play almost $1 million violin called a Galliano, and that was lent to me, which was awesome. It's definitely handcrafted. It was made in the 1800s, and it's definitely its own work of art.
And so when you play $1 million violin, are there extra nerves on top? How do you get over that so you can concentrate on playing, knowing that if you drop it, there goes, a lot of money?
Yep. So you try not to drop it. That's step one. And then after that, you just learned how the sound is, and it kind of becomes an extension of you, and you just kind of work with it. It's kind of, you put your own creativity towards it. And I think every time someone new plays an instrument, it still sounds a little bit different because everyone plays a little differently. So you still kind of add your own personal flair to it.
And so you say this is your baby. Once you pick up the $1 million violin, and it must sound like $1 million.
Yeah.
Is it hard to kind of go back and play a not $1 million violin?
Yeah.
I won't ask you how much this one costs, but
yeah, it's definitely hard, but you get used to it. Yeah.
And so you've been able to stay. You keep up your chops. So you don't play in symphony orchestra anymore, I guess.
Correct. I don't play regularly in orchestras anymore, but here and there, like I'll get together with friends who I play with in the orchestra, and we get together and just kind of sight read some chamber music and play string quartets here and there, sonatas, and it's a lot of fun just to keep it on the side.
So what's your very favorite thing to play?
Favorite thing to play? I think playing in a chamber music group, so like a string quartet, because you have your own voice amongst the group, but then you also have all the harmonies with the other lines.
Great. Thanks for joining us. If you have time, I think we're going to have you actually play some for us. So I'll shut up and let the violin do the talking.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.